My face in these books. I look so amazing right now. Pumpkin spice latte. I love you. Anyways, hopefully I like it. Why, hello there. Welcome to today's video. I am excited to be making. Tomorrow is September 22nd, and tomorrow is the first day of fall. So to celebrate the first day of fall, I am wearing long sleeves, I put on dark lipstick, and I got a pumpkin spice latte because it just has to happen. So I thought that to celebrate fall coming up, I would do a summer wrap up for you guys. I've never done a wrap up video before because I don't have all the time in the world to read. So if I were to do a month by month wrap up, it just would not be eventful and it would not be entertaining. So without further ado, I am going to be sharing with you guys all of the books that I've read this summer, and then the books that I hope and anticipate to read this fall. Ugh. I'm quite an ambitious young lady. So can I call myself a young lady? I'm only 30. I can be a young lady, right? The first book that I want to share with you, I talked about in my last book haul video. It is This Amazing Book Is Not on Fire, written by two other YouTube boys named Dan and Phil. If you haven't heard of them, they're just some goofy guys that just are true to who they are and share that with the world, and they just kind of make me giggle and make me happy. So if I'm having kind of a downer, I'm having sort of a rough day, I usually just pop on some Dan and Phil and I get pretty insta happy. Next book that I've read two of her books this summer. I have read A Court of Thorn and Roses, which is the first book in the Court of Thorn and Roses trilogy. I'm assuming it's a trilogy. I could be so wrong. Don't stone me. And then the Throne of Glass series, I read the first book in that. I don't have the second book in this one yet, but I read it a while ago, like the beginning of summer, the very, very, very beginning. I think like early June it was read. I really enjoyed reading this book, and I really enjoyed reading this book. Let's talk about this one first. I listened to this on Audible, and I really enjoy the Audible book of this series. It's just really good. I actually have the Audible book queued up and ready to go for the second book. I just really like to do that. I like to listen and read it like in intervals. So like when I'm not doing something that isn't so like multitasking and I can do something just on its own, I will pick up a book and read it. But usually I am multitasking. I'm doing dishes, or I'm helping with homework, or I'm doing laundry, or I'm doing something fun like playing a game, because I don't get a lot of alone time. So I actually listen to this at night while I play Diablo. I play a demon hunter on Diablo, and I was playing it and listening it towards the end of this book, and so my character really reminded me a lot of Farah and her adventures towards the end of the book, which I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but it's just, if you happen to like to play PC video games and you like to play Diablo and you like to read books, I would recommend just meshing the two together, because that is a fantastic, fun immersion type thing in book world. The Throne of Glass, I really, really enjoyed reading about Selena. She is an assassin. She's totally like badass. So she's in the dungeon. She's in a jail and imprisoned or whatever. They bust her out. She has to like go through these like Hunger Game trials kind of in order to become like the king's personal assassin, and to pay off her debts so that she can be a free lady eventually. There's some mythical stuff that happens in this book that's kind of crazy. It was a lot of fun. There's some romance in here, and it's just there. It's good. It's a good book to read. I liked it so much. The next book that I read this summer was one of our book talk book of the month. This was our August book of the month, was Highly Illogical Behavior. I have a 2-minute Tuesday on this sucker. If you guys wanted to check that out, I spend 2 minutes talking about it and kind of give a lowdown on what it's about and what I thought of it. So if you wanted to do that, you can do that, and you know, that's up to you. But I read this book, I loved it. It was a fast read, something really easy, especially if you are currently in the middle of reading some high fantasy series. This is a nice break in between books. And this is by John Corey Whaley, in case, you know, you didn't know that. John Corey Whaley wrote this book. The next book I have actually is a reread. I reread it, and it's our September book of the month, but I have to talk about it because The Crooked Kingdom is coming out September 27th, I believe. But I reread this book recently, and I fell more and more in love with these characters and more in love with this story. There's so much that goes on. I have a 2-minute Tuesday on this as well. A couple questions that were asked while we were talking about reading this book for this month is that if they needed to read the Grisha trilogy before they read this book to understand it. You do not have to read the Grisha trilogy to understand. I've not read it yet, but I read this book twice, and I've loved it, and I've understood everything that goes on. So it's very explanatory, and it's easy to follow once you get past the overwhelming fact of all the characters that are in this book, because there's lots of characters. Leigh Bardugo does a really great job. You know who is who. Like, each character is very defined and very much their own person, and you don't really, it's hard to mix characters up, if that makes any sense. So this was a really good read. It's very high fantasy. It's kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean meets Ocean's 11, sort of. It's good. So I hope you guys read this book. I'm really hoping that Crooked Kingdom has like cool black pages or something along those lines like this one does, because that's like one of my favorite things about this book are the pages. I love it. So yeah. The next book I read this summer was The Summer I Learned to Fly. This was a contemporary. I talked about this in one of my book hauls. I think it's the second book haul I've ever posted. And I got this from my local library bookstore. It's by Dana Reinhardt. Fun read, fun in between book to read. The last book I read was a reread as well. This was our July book of the month, and it is Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. And there was actually a lot of mixed opinions and about this book for Book Talk. Some people really loved it, some people not so much. I think I liked it more the second time around. And the first time around, I listened to it on Audible. The second time around, I actually read it. And I really do recommend reading this book over listening to it, because there's pictures in it, and I feel like the visual aids really help you grasp each character. It's easy to get mixed up and confused as to who's who and what's doing what and all that stuff, because each character has their own personal little thing that they do, especially when you get to the peculiar home part of the book. I really do want to read the rest of the series simply because I need to know what happens next. My husband bought me this book for Valentine's Day, and instead of buying me cards for special occasions like birthdays and Mother's Day and stuff like that, he buys me books, and then he writes little blurbs inside of them to me that I can keep forever, and I just find that wonderful. I like this book for more than just the book. I like it because it's something that my husband thought to get for me, and so he needs to give me the second one. Yeah. Another book that I read this summer was It Ends With Us. I don't have it with me physically because my sister's borrowing it, and I don't know if I'm gonna get it back, but she's borrowing it. You know, it's probably one of my favorite Colleen Hoover books. I'm not going to talk too much about it because she really does recommend going into it blind. If you want to know more about it, you can go on to Goodreads, read some spoilers on it if that's what you feel like you need to do. You know, if you don't feel comfortable going into that book blind, but it's very good. There's a lot of empowering moments in that book. I just really liked it. I think my favorite Colleen Hoover book overall, though, would have to be Confess. I really liked that book. It was a good story. Great story. Good story. My ambitious fall TBR. Are you guys ready for this? All right. The Last Star. This is happening. I have had this book for I think I've had it since May, since it came out. I bought it right brand new. I still haven't read it. But it's next. It's coming up. It's happening. I have to read this book. I read the first 2 books. I have a huge crush on Ben Parrish. I need to know what happens to him. I have to know. It needs to happen. It's gonna get done. I'm gonna read it. Okay, calm down. My next book that I'm hoping to read this fall, I say hoping because, crap happens and life sucks and, we go on with it, but sometimes reading for fun falls through the cracks. So I'm hoping to get this read. It is The Rose and the Dagger by Renee Ahdieh. I've had this book since May. Obviously, I've read The Wrath and the Dawn, and I really enjoyed reading that book. I finished that up, I think, in March. And it was such a great story. I loved the romance in it. I loved the mythical, powers part about it. I loved so many things about that story. I loved the characters, and I want to read this book, and it's on my TBR list. Seriously, look how cool these pages are. They're like the rigid edged pages. I think that's fun. I like textured pages. Some people don't, but they're my cup of tea. I love it. Next is A Torch Against the Night, which I recently acquired. I read An Ember in the Ashes. I did the thing where I read it and listened to the audiobook. The audiobook of Ember in the Ashes is fantastic. It is so good. So good. The actors that read the story really bring the characters to life. It is amazing. So I probably will want to do the same with this one just because that's just my thing. That's what I do. I like to listen to audiobooks and read the book in between when, I have time to not be doing other things. I don't know if I make sense. I probably don't. I cannot wait to read this book. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how things are going to go. These characters are so good and I love them so much. So, yes. The next book I got that I want to read this fall is And I Darken by Kirsten White. I got this at Target and it's a signed copy. That was really cool. I think I paid $15 for this. I've seen this floating around BookTube, and it's purple and it matches the cover. I think that's wonderful. I want to read it. It sounds pretty darn good. And then my last book that I want to read this fall is The Clockwork Angel, the Infernal Devices series. I want to start this fall. It's going to happen. This is happening. I am going to figure out what all the fuss is about with this series. It's going to happen. Cassandra Clare, watch out. I'm coming for you. Not really. I'm just going to read your book. It's happening. Priorities. It's happening. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you want to see more of my videos. I try to upload once a week. Sometimes that doesn't always happen, but I do my best. And yeah, thank you for watching this video, and we will talk to you guys. I won't talk to you later. I will just post a video and you will watch it, and maybe we might communicate in the comments. Hey, B? Yep, not getting any better.